Critic Carol Kucharowicz of Variety said that the third film in this series is successful in providing light summer entertainment and a break from reruns. Production credits are tops. Chicago Tribune's Dave Kerr observed of the second film that the leading characters may have high IQs, but most of the humor rests a few degrees south of lowbrow. And New York Times critic Lawrence Van Gelder claimed that the 1984 original doesn't do much for movies or nerds. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Revenge of the Nerds.
Reboot. Which one will it be?
It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
I don't know if I like that.
You gotta try every now and again. You try something different, and look, it doesn't ever have to happen again.
Yeah, you're listening to Ruined Childhoods. I'm John. That's Dan, who made that crazy sound. Is that?
I should have done it higher pitched.
Is that
Sounds
how
better.
you? Is that how you would address the Greek Council?
Indeed.
To the
Point of order.
Greek Council.
May I address the Greek Council? They would throw me out by the time I finished that sentence.
Yeah, right. We're talking about Revenge of the Nerds on this episode. But first, did you have anything you wanted to talk about Bad News Bears that we maybe didn't get to, or that you thought of after we stopped recording?
No, I don't. I don't. Do you?
No, I don't. It was a perfect episode.
I mean, I felt that way. I felt like we talked about now. I don't recall hearing us discuss the gold commercials, because that seems to have had slipped my mind until you reminded me.
I don't think I was even aware of these until I was editing the episode and trying to find just William Devane clips of him just saying his own name, which he does in these commercials for Rosalind Capital. I can't believe I can't believe I remembered the name of this company, but he has done what seems like dozens of these absolutely insane gold commercials, trying to tell people to invest all of their money into gold, roll over their IRAs into gold, and they get really nutty. They get really, really nutty.
Is it like a scam? Is like William Devane doing a Ponzi scheme? I mean, no, this is not like a Ponzi scheme.
I don't think it's necessarily a scam as much as I think it's just a bad investment. And it's funny because on the Rosalind Capital website, they have like a little ticker at the bottom that shows the current like prices, and they're all going down right now. So it's like, yeah, maybe don't buy gold right now.
How was William Devane to know?
How was William Devane to know? But the commercials are lunacy. And if you listen to the latest...
I had no idea.
If you listen to the last episode, you'll hear some of the clips. I put one also at the very, very end, and it's bananas.
Yeah, but wow, just the beginning with the $10 cup of lemonade at the lemonade
that's
stand.
The one that that's one that I put at the end. I just sent that one to you. So that one's crazy.
I mean, Devane almost cusses out this child.
There's a ridiculous one that's, that they're playing right now, and it's all about how it's election time. And he's like,
"Hi, I'm William Devane. And right now, there's a serious discussion about who our next president will be. A Republican, a Democrat, an independent. The future of our country is hanging in the balance, which is why, as a good American, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to vote
and invest my money in gold
from Rosalind Capital."
Everything just comes right around to gold. It's nuts.
Great. Wonderful. William Devane, he'll be the last one. He'll be like, we'll all just be in 5 years from now, just a post-apocalyptic wreck. And then William Devane is going to live in his like palace of gold. And he's to be like, you should have listened.
Yeah. And so Roslyn Capital sells gold, like gold coins with like Formula One drivers' faces on them. It's really bananas.
Is a Darrell Waltrip like worth more than a Dale Earnhardt Jr. or...
Dan, you're saying words I don't understand. Dale Earnhardt Jr. I understand. I don't know if is he Formula One or just NASCAR. I don't know the difference.
There is one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Those were the two drivers. There are other drivers I think I know I could think of. Danica Patrick.
Right.
Is another one.
Those are names.
She is a driver.
She is not on a gold coin.
Cole Trickle, who
not
is a fictional character, is not even a real person. But
yeah,
So anyway, yeah.
So just as there is a difference between NASCAR and Formula One, there is also a difference between a nerd, a geek, a dork, a spaz, a dweeb. But in the eyes of the Lambda 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 fraternity, they are brothers. And that's what we're talking about this time.
I thought you were going into the synopsis.
No,
I was
no.
like, that is smooth. Okay, I thought that was just like the beginning of your synopsis.
No.
Oh.
No, I just wanted to talk about Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
So before we get into...
Which, not a far cry from Bad News Bears, by the way. Thematically,
right. It's in a lot of ways a snobs versus slobs story, which is, something that we got into... going back to heavyweights, and it's definitely a recurring theme.
Very similar to heavyweights.
And Revenge of the Nerds is it's a 4-part series with 2 theatrical films and 2 made-for-TV movies. And I don't know, it just like has this iconic legacy for all sorts of reasons. Some being just like, it is this extremely memorable movie that people will always reference. Good luck going on a college campus and like not thinking about it when you see some of the fraternities. Clearly Animal House also comes to mind, but this is another one of those big like college frat movies. And I don't know. And also it's very well known for the problematic scenes in it.
Problematic scenes, problematic writing, problems.
Totally.
Problems.
So, Dan, I think I'll just get into the synopsis for the first Revenge of the Nerds movie. Excited to broaden their horizons at Adams College, best buds Lewis and Gilbert are in for a surprise when they are greeted with less than open arms once they arrive at their new school. Immediately clocked by the Alpha Beta fraternity as nerds, Lewis and Gilbert ignore taunts as they fackler their way through the quad and into their dorm. As they unpack their clothes and robot parts into their new dorm room, Lewis explains to Gilbert how their lives are about to change, seeing as how they are now able to fully open themselves up to sexual opportunities that weren't part of their lives up until this moment. But everything changes after an evening of fire stunts leads to the ashy demise of the Alpha Beta house. Seeing as how the Alphas are primarily members of the football team, Coach Harris demands to Dean Ulick that the boys take over the freshman dorm, displacing Lewis, Gilbert, and a few dozen other college freshmen, dumping them into a gymnasium lined with rows of cots. As a consolation to the freshmen for their inconvenience, Adams College has lifted their ban on freshmen pledging fraternities. After Lewis and Gilbert are directed to the Alpha Beta house as a prank, they are humiliated and possibly coaxed into fornicating with goats. That's when Lewis and Gilbert luck into a much better situation. A lovely dump of a house that can house Lewis, Gilbert, and a large number of their brethren. Once they fix the place up with the help of their robot friend, the nerds finally have a place to live. But the Alpha Betas aren't okay with it and throw a rock through their window. But the nerds need one thing, a fraternal sponsor to charter their house. The one fraternity that agreed to meet with them was also the one fraternity to which they did not send a group photo, Lambda Lambda Lambda, a historically black fraternity led by UN Jefferson, who would pass on nerds in a flash, except they have a mandatory 60-day probationary period. The nerds attempt to wow UN by throwing a great party, and the Pi Delta Pies, the alpha betas of sororities, agreed to be the dates for the nerds. Except for Gilbert, who found love with Judy, a helpless dork in the computer lab. When it comes time to party, the nerds are left stranded. The Pies didn't show as it was another prank. But that's okay because Judy is a member of the Omega Mu sorority and she invited all of her sisters to come party. That's when things get wild. But the Alphas and the Pies aren't done yet. They let a bunch of wild pigs into the party and then moon the nerds from their truck. How do the nerds retaliate? They stage a massive panty raid at the Pie House, a decoy, while nerds Lamar and Wormser set up video cameras in the Pie House. But the Alpha Betas take it one step further by burning a well-constructed effigy outside the nerd, now Lambda house. But there's nothing that can be done. The only group that can do anything about it is the Greek Council. And the chair of the Greek Council? Stan Gable, the head honcho of the Alpha Betas. The only way to get proper revenge is to take control of the Greek Council, and that's decided at the Adams College Greek Games. The Tri-Lambs compete against the Alpha Betas in a test of physical and guttural skill. Tri-Lamb Takashi performs in a drunken tricycle race, but they give him a performance-enhancing drug that negates the effects of alcohol. There's a bullfighting analog competition where someone sits on a barrel suspended by ropes and others attempt to shake them off. Alpha Beta Ogre wins that one. Ogre also narrowly wins an arm wrestling competition against an Omega Mu. But Ogre falls short when it comes to the belching contest and loses to Tri-Lamb Booger. That's when things get funky. During a charity carnival, the Alpha Betas and Pies make a killing in their kissing booth, but that's nothing compared to the Tri-Lambs who are selling pies. What's the catch? At the bottom of each pie tin, there's a topless photo of Betty, the head pie. Meanwhile, Lewis takes advantage of a delicate situation and tricks Betty into a precarious situation and performs non-consensual oral sex on her, aka rape, and his sexual aptitude convinces her that nerds are incredible in and out of the sack. But that's not the end. The frats and sororities have to participate in a final song or skit competition. Everything is totally weak until it's time for the Tri-Lambs. They perform a techie rap and dance routine that wins them the Greek Games and head seat of the Greek Council. Lewis makes a grand speech about how nerds are persecuted, and then nearly everyone comes forward, admitting to be nerds.
Clap your hands, everybody, and everybody clap your hands. We Lambda, 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 and Omega Mu. And we've come here on stage tonight to do a show for you. We got a rockin' rhythm and a high-tech sound that'll make you move your body down to the ground. We got Poindexter on the violin, and Lewis and Gilbert will be joining in. We got Booger Presley on the mean guitar, and a rap by little old me, Lamar. We got Takashi beating on his gong. The boys and the moos are clapping along. And just when you thought you seen it all, along comes a Lambda 4-foot tall. So Worms will come on out here on the floor, so we can work our bodies like never before. Break.
So, as Lewis Skolnick, we've got Robert Carradine. As Gilbert Lowe, we've got Anthony Edwards. Timothy Busfield plays Arnold Poindexter. Andrew Cassis plays Harold Wormser. Curtis Armstrong, the incredible Curtis Armstrong, is Dudley Dawson, a.k.a. Booger. We have Larry B. Scott as Lamar Luttrell. Brian Toshi as Toshiro Takashi. Julie Montgomery is Betty Childs. Michelle Mayrink as Judy. We've got Ted McGinley from Married with Children as Stan Gable. Let's see. Donald Gibb is Ogre. James Cromwell, credited as Jamie Cromwell, is Lewis's father. Who else do we have? Oh, John Goodman.
John Goodman.
Is Coach Harris. And Bernie Casey is Ewan Jefferson. So, Dan.
Oh boy. Yeah. It had been a long time since I had seen this movie, and growing up, I was much more familiar with the sequel. because I saw that first. It was PG-13 and therefore could be played on HBO during the day.
There you go.
So, but I remembered I think I saw Revenge of the Nerds for the first time in high school, and it was fine. This was also the mid-90s, so not really aware of a lot of the problems in it, and not as just a couple of comments before I go and get into like my reaction. I want to first of all, before I kind of criticize the writing a little bit, just shout out how good Robert Carradine is, especially because he was cast so against type. He's wonderful. He's really, really good. He's so good. This is kind of like, I know Lizzie McGuire and everything, but Robert, this is the role that, for better or for worse, defines Robert Carradine's career up to this point. Yeah. Like, that's who you think of. And I guess to a certain extent, like Anthony Edwards, though, he's definitely like with ER and The Client, of course. Yeah. Well, this was 1984. Yeah. So, this was, what year was Top Gun? 86. 86. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, wow. I forgot about that Anthony. I forgot that Anthony Edwards was in Top Gun. So right. Goose. Yeah. Very important. No. Top Gun is in between Revenge of the Nerds and Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise, which explains a lot once we get into Nerds in Paradise. Right. But so Robert Carradine is great. James Cromwell, by the way, is just an awesome human being. James Cromwell is awesome, and he shows up in he doesn't show up in 2, but he shows up in 3 and 4. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So even, which I believe one of those is probably after he got his like Oscar nomination for Babe, though he was in. I think so. Yeah, it was 92 and 94, I think. Something like that. Oh, so Babe was 95. Yeah. I could be wrong about those years, but I believe it was around those times. So many great performances. LA Confidential is another one of my favorites with James Cromwell. But he's great. He's a badass who's been arrested like a million times for advocacy. Yeah. He got arrested in 1971 for attacking a cop who was harassing a woman. Wow. Solid in a subway station. Yeah. So James Cromwell, bad motherfucker. Yeah, and I want to talk just a little bit more about Gilbert, Anthony Edwards' character. Just like he plays him as such like a sweet, empathetic person. And at the end of the movie, even though Lewis is clearly like the main character, when they win the seat for the Greek Council, he announces that Gilbert would be doing it because he's like, let's face it, Gilbert's the real responsible one here. I'm, kind of a rebel rouser. Well, and that kind of comes back to my point with critiquing the writing, because on this last watch, I found Lewis to be pretty unlikable, and that is all like rape aside. Well, I understood. I found him a lot more abrasive than I usually do. And I was like, you need Gilbert because Gilbert is the one that people are going to connect with more. Yeah. Lewis is this is made for an audience. This is made for the Lewises. Yeah. You know what, Dan? I will argue that a little bit though, because in the very first scene, we are introduced to both Lewis and Gilbert. Gilbert, it takes place in Gilbert's bedroom. He's, in bed. It's their first day. They're supposed to be going off to college, and Gilbert's still in bed, and Lewis is there to go pick him up. And we find out that he's fully dressed underneath the blanket, and he's just playing a goof. But before that happens, Lewis goes up to Gilbert's mom, and it shows you that Lewis has this, this essence to him that enchants people, because Gilbert's he's better with adults. Well, yes, but so Gilbert's mom is like butter in his hands. He is like, he kind of has his arm, like his hand on her arm, and he like gives her a kiss on the cheek and calls her by her first name. Yeah, it's kind of great.
Gilbert, come on, rise and shine. Dad's waiting outside in the car. It's all packed. Hi, Flo.
Hi.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a great year.
Aw.
Now, I figure with lunch and 2 ARVs, we should be on the road approximately 7 hours, 18 minutes, and 7 seconds.
ARVs.
Average restroom visits.
Oh, I'm so proud of you two boys.
It shows you like there is something really funky about this guy. And I think it's kind of like maybe an Eddie Haskell type of situation where it's like he's just, really good at laying it on. But where he succeeds and Eddie Haskell doesn't is that people fall for it with him. And it's like he's a manipulator. And that's kind of how he makes things happen. Yes, he is an icky guy, and you do need the Gilbert. And the Gilbert does balance him out a lot. But I don't know. I think that still, I don't know. There's like that quality to him that I don't think would work nowadays. But,
it's not it's more of just his attitude, and because the other guys, like Booger is as pervy as they come.
Yes.
Lewis maybe running a close second. And I don't find Booger to be unlikable. I think because Booger does not put on any facade. There's no guys with Booger.
Yeah.
Lewis literally puts on a disguise.
Yeah.
Whereas Booger is just like, this is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. And it's why Curtis Armstrong, who was, by the way, the first one cast in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was the first one cast. He was coming off of Risky Business.
Right.
And
was Better Off Dead after this?
I believe so. Yeah, I want to say Better Off Dead was 1985. But so Curtis Armstrong was it was after, yeah. So after Risky Business, and he makes it work. He makes everything, like, I don't know how much was scripted versus I know there were some ad libs thrown in, but
yeah, I think that his demeanor and the way that you see him getting along with people like Takashi, even though he's, cheating him at cards left and right, but like, he still finds his own special ways to bond with these guys, and he's not an outsider. Even though he's not a conventional nerd, you don't get the impression that he's a particularly smart guy, but he fits in with them because he's an outcast.
Yeah, and he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
he doesn't care about labels or anything like that. He just wants to have a good time.
No, and I think that becomes pretty clear with the treatment of Lamar, because there are only a few references to him being gay. There's when he says that he has a date for the party that they throw, they're just like, yeah, but that's with a guy.
Have any of you guys got dates besides Gilbert?
I do. Yeah, but that's with a guy.
What about you, Booger?
I've been out combing the high schools all day.
And that's one of the few mentions of it. Like, it's never looked upon as being wrong or like anybody disapproving of it. And that goes across the board. He's just looked at as a nerd.
Right. And that's one thing that you can say in favor of this, is that even the Alpha Betas, the Stan and the frat guys, they'll call them nerds and they'll make fun of them for that. But I didn't necessarily catch. It's funny because even though I think this movie is very much about race and racism, it's not. I mean, yeah, lambda, LLL. But it's not mentioned but it's referenced. Like you talked before about how the Alpha Betas burn the
right.
Yeah, it's a cross burning. I mean, they're not burning a cross, but it evokes a cross burning.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, did UN see that? I know that he clearly witnessed the other pranks that evening, but I'm trying to remember if that was a different time when UN wasn't there.
I think that was a different. Wasn't that after? No, because that was after they wrecked. That was after they won the competition and the jocks, wrecked the house, which apparently originally that scene, the lambdas were supposed to be in the house and the jocks like beat them up and literally throw them out of the house. So, but that was kept out. But yeah, there's the line like Stan says to Betty about like how they're taking over and like, we don't want these people here.
Right.
And
yeah.
It's the same, it's modern speak today. It's we're burning the suburbs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. Which it actually brings up a question because it's Adams, and I know it's ADAMS college,
right.
But they're the Adams Atoms.
Right.
So was it once upon a time, like, I wonder if this is a university that has kind of swung from being a more like science-based college.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
We're going to talk about that because then the one thing I want to, the other thing I want to talk about with the original Revenge of the Nerds in terms of science and also context is that it is released in 1984, which you could make a case for 84 being one of the greatest years in movies. Not that I consider this to be a contributing factor.
Well, there was that image going around of like the newspaper from sometime in 84, which is just like the movie page where it's like all the movies that were out that weekend. And wow.
Yeah. Oh, I like how someone was like, this is faked. Star Trek movies didn't come out over the summer. I was like, yeah, some of them did.
Yeah.
Including that one. But yeah. It comes out in 1984, which is the same year, and it comes out in August. So earlier that year at the Super Bowl, we had the big Apple ad, the Ridley Scott, like 1984 Apple ad.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom secure from the pests of a contradictory thoughts. Our unification of thoughts is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
And it's like all of a sudden it's like nerd culture is infiltrating the zeitgeist. So on the Super Bowl, the biggest football game of the year, you have arguably stealing the spotlight from the sports is the technology and Apple. And of course, this was in production before that, but it just seems to be perfect perfect timing.
Right.
But yet it's also we're on the verge of the nerds becoming, really the enviable ones. And I think that this is something that might come back in the later films where they actually, or like doesn't Lewis like do pretty well?
Yeah. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Just some other, there's the racism, a little bit of racism when all like the lambdas, all like the national chapter lambdas show up.
Yeah.
And the football guys kind of back off. And it's like, this is a little bit like, oh, here come the big scary black men. I understood the context, but
yeah. Well, while we're on that subject, though, I do want to mention how while, yes, this is about race, they seem to forget that when dealing with Takashi, because, yes, your eyes just lit up because that portrayal is, there's a lot of extremely racist things about it. He's got like the kamikaze helmet on when he's doing the tricycle thing and they're playing the like children's
music.
Yeah, everything about his character, and there's definitely a theme throughout a lot of movies where they seem to forget the fact that like you can also be racist against Asians. And, even when you're trying to make a bold statement about one type of racism, you have to remember that there's other forms too.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and I have a quote here from an article that GQ did last year for the 35th anniversary. And it's Brian Toshi, who we also know from the Police Academy series, episodes 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
In my country, it is written, only kiss of beautiful woman can compare to petal of a rose. Babe.
In America, talk is cheap.
Oh, I love America.
This is what he said about it. He said, I got so much shit from Asian entities, newspapers, commentators, and groups saying that I kind of perpetuated the Asian stereotype. But what made it different with me? First of all, at the time, I was one of the very few Asian actors in TV or film. Yes, it was a stereotype, but we were playing real people. We had heart and the film had heart. I thought, fuck them, you know?
Well, I mean, I do appreciate that he has a perspective on it and wasn't just like, I'll take any job I can get no matter what. And
really how would it be different? Look at his character in Police Academy.
Right. Very similar.
Yeah. So at least it doesn't sound like he was like forced into it, and you had like someone that was like Tony Danza Crash. Hey, could you sound more Oriental?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we should also mention John Goodman's character, Coach Harris, who is pretty much like the older generation instigator, the one that really pushes them to wreak havoc. The alpha betas, of course. The one that's kind of fanning the flames a little bit, and when they back off, yells at them and makes them go even stronger. Yeah, and I think that's an extremely common thing where it's like, the younger generations, if they're teetering on the edge of thinking one way or another, it's the older generations that are responsible for tipping them in the right direction, which Coach Harris does not.
No, absolutely not. And I have to say, I didn't enjoy watching the movie as much as I remember enjoying it in the past for the first half of it, just because I felt so awful.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the past I was able to just watch it separately and just, haha, that's funny, and knowing they're going to get their revenge. But like, I'm watching them get like by these assholes.
Well, also the pranks aren't clever.
No,
they're destructive and mean.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to talk a
little bit. In the second one, they get a little more clever.
The second one's great. The second one, I have a lot of fondness for. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to mention how, like, this comes out not too long after the Rise of the Police Academy movies, which is, a series
5 months.
It's a series that's all about pranks. It's like and I know there's been other movies before this, Animal House being one of them, where it's like, movies where the pranks kind of keep it going.
Police Academy really is prank after prank.
Police Academy is a prank fest. And I think that this is very similar to it, but in a more mean-spirited way. Whereas the pranks in Police Academy, they don't necessarily do as much damage.
Right. Well, and not to mention the people who are getting pranked deserve it, usually. Because it's usually like Captain Harris or Mauser or Proctor that's getting pranked. So there's more of a sense of comeuppance because they're still, even though they're the ones getting pranked, they're still the oppressors. They're still the authority.
No, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about it. And as Dan, you and I have discussed, the cops or police in training in the Police Academy movies, they are kind-hearted. They, aside from, Copeland and, the cops who are,
Right.
the Harris proteges or the Mauser proteges. You have our main crew who actually want to protect and serve and, have empathy for people. Except for Captain Harris and Mauser and Proctor. And Copeland.
But they are always trying to, whether it's Mahoney, and we're getting on a police academy tangent. I'm aware of it. We're going to get off of it. But when they are always like, oh, come on, Captain Harris. Don't you oh, come on, Captain Harris. Get chill out. Be cool. They're not, they still are give him a chance.
Right.
So
Totally.
anyway, well, to come back to on another time at another podcast.
Yes. Go to podleaseacademy.com and check that out. We're working on it. I'm constantly thinking about it. Dan, we kind of touched a little bit on Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise. Should I give a little synopsis of that, or rather one that's a little too long because that's how I wrote it?
Sure. Why not?
And we're going to come back to all the movies. So this is a few years later. So 1 year after the Lambda fraternity was founded at Adams College, a group of representatives are sent to Fort Lauderdale, Florida to attend a National Greek Council convention. Destined for paradise, Lewis, Booger, Wormser, Poindexter, and Lamar are headed to the fanciest hotel in town to show the Greeks what they're made of. That's where Lewis meets Sonny, the instantly likable front desk clerk who informs them that their rooms have been canceled. What the guys don't realize is that the acting manager of the hotel is staunchly anti-nerd and doesn't want their kind to be seen at his beautiful establishment. This is troubling for the Tri-Lambs since all of the hotels in town are booked up, except one, the Hotel Coral Essex. Once they get there, it's revealed to be a total dump. Their room even has a chalk outline on the floor. The hotel's manager does everything to make them comfortable, and they accept their fate as temporary residents of the Hotel Coral Essex. Meanwhile, anti-nerd frat guy Roger decides to make it his mission to eliminate all nerds from the conference. First, he tries to scare them away. He and his cronies, including Ogre, stage a highly offensive seminal sacrificial ritual, complete with a pool of gators, and convince the nerds to happen upon it, scaring them into stripping down into their skivvies and thinking that they are enemy number one of the Seminoles. Unshaken, the nerds make their way to day one of the conference, much to Roger's surprise. That's when he ups the ante and declares a physical aptitude test that all fraternities must pass in order to remain in their positions. This proposition, titled Prop 15, will be voted on the next day. This is where the Tri-Lambs shine. They rig their hotel sign so that it blasts hot oral sex into downtown Fort Lauderdale, and they stage a massive outdoor concert where they perform a Beastie Boys style rap called No on 15 with the help of their new friend Stuart, a former employee at the fancy hotel where they attempted to stay. Prop 15 gets voted down due to the efforts of the nerds, but that's when Roger takes things to a new level. He partners with Lewis to announce a new rule that any fraternity member who gets arrested is immediately expelled. That's when Roger sets up the Tri-Lambs to get caught with his car that he reports stolen. But when they get out of jail, Roger and the Alphas decide to prohibit them to stand up for themselves, and they dump them on a deserted island. When Ogre claims that he's not going to keep it a secret, it's too good of a thing for an anti-nerd, Roger throws him overboard too. But when Ogre flailingly yells that he can't swim, Wormser's the only one that goes out to rescue him. Back on the island, everything falls apart. Lewis thinks that Sonny betrayed them, as she was with them when they got arrested. Luckily, Booger finds weed and they all smoke gigantic joints together around the campfire. The next morning, the nerds use their intelligence to figure out the coordinates of where they are, and when they look it up, Sonny realizes that they're on an island that was rumored to house a cache of military-grade weapons by a Cuban mercenary. Poindexter and Stuart fashion a metal detector out of coconuts and spare parts, and they're able to find the goods. Meanwhile, in Fort Lauderdale, Roger is making a grand speech about how disgusting it was for the nerds to commit such a heinous crime and not show up to explain themselves. That's when a giant amphibious tank crashes through the conference room and the nerds uncover Roger's evil plan to everyone. When they get home to Adams College, they induct the newest member of the Tri-Lambs, Ogre, who, after drinking the special punch, belts out a magnificent, nerdificent laugh. So we have Robert Carradine back as Lewis. Anthony Edwards is back in a limited role as Gilbert, as he did not like the script but was contractually bound to appear in it. So, he had a broken leg, so he couldn't show up. And then he shows up in like a dream sequence and he's there at the end. We got Booger, we have Lamar, Timothy Busfield is there as Poindexter. Andrew Cassis is back as Wormser. The magnificent and charming Courtney Thorne-Smith from Summer School is Sunny.
Released like the same time.
She's so good in this.
She had a great year, 1987.
As Raj, we've got Bradley Whitford, who, at this point, he did Adventures in Babysitting.
Same summer.
It was the same summer. Oh my God.
Yeah, summer 87.
Amazing.
Summer
Love
87.
It.
Crazy.
Barry Sobel is Stuart, who's very good at what he's there to do. James Hong plays Snotty, who is a resident at the Hotel Coral Essex, who Booger is drawn to because Snotty is like the Mr. Miyagi to his Daniel-san, and he learns the arts of burping and hawking loogies and things like that. And Dan, did you clock one of the alphas, Tiny, which I thought that Tiny was very funny. One of the alphas who was in Roger's little clan is played by Tom Hodges, who you might remember from Heavyweights. He's, what's his name, like Sven or something like that?
Oh, Lars.
Lars, that's right. Yeah, so that's that guy.
Okay, yeah, oh, yeah.
So
there we go.
He cracked me up so much in this because the way that he played his character was so great, but he kept on being like...
Wait a second. I got it. It's so simple. I mean, they're nerds, but they're men too. Sort of. And what is the thing that every man in the world is afraid of?
I don't know, Tiny. What?
Come on, guys, you know. At one time or another, every man in this tub has been petrified that a chick is gonna see him without his clothes on and see how small his dick really is, right?
Jesus.
Come on, guys, admit it.
Yeah, sure. Whatever. Tiny.
What? What? It's a reverse nickname. You know, like they call redheaded guys blondie and right-handed guys lefty.
Hey, Mini Link, are you finished?
And bald guys hairy.
Will you shut up? We gotta get rid of these guys. We gotta get rid of them in a major way.
And then he wants them to call him, I think, like Meats or something like that, which was... I think that was pretty close to what it was, which was our father's fraternity nickname. And so whenever Tiny comes up, he's got like these little like two-liner gags throughout the movie, and they're always so funny. I find this movie very entertaining. It is.
I remember it. I did not. Straight up, I did not rewatch Nerds 2 leading up to this episode, but I felt like when I thought about it, I remembered so much. I remembered Courtney Thorne-Smith, and I remembered the whole thing, that the prank that the Alpha Betas play on the Tri-Lambs.
Well, right, because that's the one that played on HBO during the day ad nauseum, and we watched it all the time. It's so good. It's like candy to me, this movie. And having Ogre around is always a nice touch. Having him become a lambda at the end is kind of nice. It's a little over the top, but whatever.
It made sense. Now, I want to point out an interesting kind of like, I don't know, cosmic connection here. Now, Ted McGinley, Stan Gable in the original Revenge of the Nerds, was initially going to come back for the sequel. But then I don't know why was replaced by Bradley Whitford. Now, for those who know of Ted McGinley's career, they would find that this is the opposite of what usually happens. Usually Ted McGinley is brought in to replace somebody else in a series. So like Married with Children, he was not Marcy's original husband. Yeah, Marcy was with Steve. And then she married Jefferson, I think was his name.
Yeah.
Jefferson Darcy, so she was Marcy Darcy.
Right.
So, I know, prelude to the Julia Gulia joke in The Wedding Singer.
Sunday's a big day, huh? I don't even know your last name.
It's Gulia.
Gulia. Julia's last name is gonna be Gulia. Julia Gulia. That's funny. Why is that funny? I don't know.
But Ted, and then the joke always was, now Married with Children went on for several more seasons with Ted McGinley, but most television series that in their later seasons replaced a departing cast member with Ted McGinley, it was like that was going to be the last season or two of that series. And Revenge of the Nerds has gone on 3 sequels, I guess, and possibly counting, who knows. And it's lived on with its legacy, but Ted McGinley was there in the beginning, but only the beginning.
He's in 3 and 4.
He does come back. Okay. All right. So, wow. Okay.
Oh, he is very much in 3 and 4. Less so in 4. He's in 3. He's in 4, but not as much.
So, all right. So clearly, you know that I have not. I've never seen 3 or 4. We're going to talk about them here, John.
I will talk about them. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So,
oh, by the way, just before we move on from 2, I'm reading here.
I'm not moving on from 2.
On the trivia here for IMDb, do you know who was offered the opportunity to direct this and turned it down?
Tell me.
According to IMDb trivia, Todd Solondz.
Oh, I did see that. Can you imagine a Todd Solondz Revenge of the Nerds movie? Wow.
It would be so fucked up.
Yeah.
I would love to see it.
We mentioned Welcome to the Dollhouse, I think, the last episode.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of Welcome to the Dollhouse, like happiness,
storytelling.
Like revenge. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Just Todd Solondz does not pull punches.
I would see a Todd Solondz Revenge of the Nerds with Dylan Baker in it, just in any capacity. You know, he'd be in it. I think was he in storytelling? I get storytelling and happiness mixed up sometimes.
He was in happiness.
He's
in happiness.
He's so good in it.
He was so good in happiness that just the thought of it creeps me out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
uncomfortable movie.
Yeah. So just kind of going through Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise. It's very comforting. Like there's something about it that just like, it just feels good to watch it, or even just to like think about it, because the scenes in it are just so insane. And I mean, clearly it's, you know, the mid 80s, the representation of Native Americans is extremely outdated. And, you know, clearly that would not happen now, I would hope. But aside from that, there aren't any super problematic things. We do know that at the beginning of the movie, Lewis is still in a relationship with Betty. He like packs her picture in with his stuff and then, you know, cheats on her with Sonny. So which is interesting, because the reason why Julia Montgomery didn't want to come back was because the original script had her cheating on Lewis, which she thought went against everything that happened to the character in the first film. So, and then I know she comes back. She does.
In the series, but it's ironic because that her not coming back for that reason then produced the storyline in which Lewis cheats on her.
Yeah, so it's kind of funky, but it tracks for Lewis's personality. And what's also kind of funky is like, I mean, all we see them do is kiss, but when that happens, everyone kind of just like cheers them on, and no one is just like, aren't you dating Betty, that girl that you worked so hard to be with in the first place? And
do you think those guys cared? Do you think those guys?
I don't think Booger would care. Wormser has no moral compass. In this one, we see that he has a series of fake IDs in which he purchases beer with an Admiral's ID, which is
he's kind of like he's the original McLovin.
Oh yeah, no kidding. He really, really is. Except he's good at it. He's confident. Yeah. He's confident.
Oh, well, yeah, they totally corrupted him in the first one. One note, though,
totally
on representation. So what's interesting is in this GQ article, you know, they interview, I think, everyone from the cast, and Larry B. Scott, who plays Lamar, was interviewed. And one of the reasons why he went so much for this part and why he really wanted to get this part was because he didn't want to play, and I can't find the exact quote, but he didn't want to play this like stereotypical like thugs. and gang members. He says,
yeah.
here's a quote. He says, "I got tired of doing these roles. I'm going to cut you, man." And what's interesting is he kind of goes, he goes from playing that stereotype and then goes into this stereotype, which at that time was much more, it was, I guess, safer. And much less, or like, it's not that people weren't offended by it, but the people who were offended by it, that's the thing is like, people are like, whenever I hear people say, oh, no one was, why are people offended by this now? They were offended by it back then.
Yeah.
It's just, they didn't feel they could say anything.
I do want to jump back to the first Revenge of the Nerds to talk about Lamar's performance in the Greek games where he does the javelin. And I kind of love that moment. So it's established that Wormser is into aerodynamics. So they've created a javelin for Lamar's, as Gilbert says, limp-wristed throwing style.
Wait till you see Lamar's throw.
How come?
Wormser's a master at aerodynamics, and he designed the javelin to go along with Lamar's limp-wristed throwing style.
And the thing is, though, like, they aren't really making fun of his sexual orientation. They're using it as a way to incorporate other humor to get them to win the games. And it's played really, really well. I think that Larry B. Scott does an awesome job. Did I get his name right?
Yeah, and Larry B. Scott also having a great summer in 1984 because he also pops up in The Karate Kid.
That's right. He's Cobra Kai, right?
He's Cobra Kai, yeah.
Yeah. And as we will talk about in a future episode, kills it in Space Camp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
A much more understated character.
Yeah, right, right. But no, he's very funny. I love the relationship with him and Wormser.
I know, they have such a sweet friendship.
It really is, yeah. And I mean, it's like, it's not totally absurd and it's not an offensive portrayal. It's just, or maybe it is, but I think it's just one that comes across as just like playing the stereotype now.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas then, I mean, it was like, look at Jim J. Bullock on Too Close for Comfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wasn't really acting.
Right. So I will briefly synopsize Next Generation, Revenge of the Nerds 3, The Next Generation. Several years after Nerds in Paradise, Lewis's nephew Harold is headed to follow in his uncle's footsteps at Adams College. Lewis, now Lou, has decided to cover up his nerd roots and play Joe Cool as the wealthy chair of the computer science department at Adams. His wife, Betty, from the first movie, is a professor of art history, and they have a lovely life for themselves. But when wealthy Adams alum Orrin Price arrives at the school to drop off his son, the place is almost unrecognizable to him. It's overrun with nerds. Orrin and his son are livid, especially when they arrive at the Alpha Beta house and see a bunch of dummies saying that no one wants to join because Lambda 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 is the hottest house on campus. Orrin Price knows that he needs to revert things back to their old ways. He sways the college board to retire the dean and appoint a new one. Local cop, Stan Gable. The Alpha Betas terrorize the Trilambs to the point that Lou, who has become friends with Stan, knows that he needs to revisit his roots and nerd up once again. He helps his nephew and the fellow nerds find justice, especially with the help of the only Trilam who became a lawyer, Dudley Dawson, aka Booger. After a series of pranks back and forth, the Trilams win their case and expose Orrin Price for who he really is, and Stan realizes that he was wrong to enable him. And it turns out that once he got to know Lewis a little better, he realized that nerds are actually pretty great, and declares that he is, himself, a nerd. So we've got okay, Dan, I sent you a clip of Lewis, a moment with Robert Carradine, and it's like, oh boy, how the mighty have fallen. It's some of the worst acting I've ever seen.
Incoming phone call.
Hello. Oh, no. That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
What about a beehive? What's wrong?
Some vandals have desecrated the computer center.
The acting, the writing, the editing.
It's shot on video at a time when the video did not look good.
It looks like porn.
Yeah.
It looks like porn without any of the porn. It's just the scenes.
And so also, just to paint the picture for you, Oren Price is played by Morton Downey Jr., who has the biggest teeth in the game. We also have, so Greg Binkley plays Harold Skolnick. Richard Israel is his buddy Ira. We have a new batch of Tri-Lambs that include Henry Cho as Steve Toyota, who's a Korean guy from the South who is like an Elvis impersonator, kind of. It's whack. I didn't like it at all.
Hey, wait, who's that guy over there?
Oh, that's Steve Toyota. Steve's the editor of the school paper. Toyota!
Enjoy your refreshments, and thank you for rushing.
Like you to meet Harold and Ira.
Toyota, are you Japanese?
Heck no, boy. I'm Korean.
Why do you talk like that?
South Korean.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and then Malcolm Pennington III is played by Chai McBride, who's great. Like, he actually is pretty good.
He's always good.
Yeah, we've got James Cromwell back. We've got Bernie Casey as Ewan Jefferson back. We have cameos by Larry B. Scott. Sean Whalen is playing Harold Wormser now. But we do have Brian Toshi back. And trying to think if there were any other of the original crew. I don't think so. Oh, wait.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that Poindexter comes back. We didn't even talk about Timothy Busfield, really. He's great as Poindexter.
No, and he has just one of the most hilarious moments of the movie. I mean, he's got a few of them, but
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, when they're watching the cameras, and he just
looks down at his crotch and just screams.
He just nuts. Yeah, and it's. So funny, and he's so good. Timothy Busfield is he's just one of those guys who it's like I'm relieved when I see his name in the cast of something. It's like even if he's played a bad guy, I'm watching Sneakers, I'm like, oh yeah, Tim Busfield's in that. Like Field of Dreams, he's a dick in that.
And it should also be noted that there's a significantly large number of cast members from the Revenge of the Nerds movies who have ended up on like The West Wing.
Oh yeah, you got Bradley Whitford.
Because Timothy Busfield is on it, right?
Timothy, yeah.
I think there might be some more.
Timothy Busfield is on it a lot. Bradley Whitford, of course, was a series regular. I know I'm forgetting someone. I want to say like James Hong was on an episode.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. He's been in everything. So this movie, yes, Lewis is. He's made a name for himself. What's also funky about this one is like they have like a lot of really weird mistakes, and like the way that they say things is bizarre, and they like repeat words. Like in the clip that I sent you, Dan, there's this moment where they get a phone call that someone has like, I think they've said like desecrated the computer lab, and then like 2 scenes later, there's like, oh yeah, I heard that the computer lab was desecrated. Like it was.
Well, I think the screenplay was written by a couple of 8th graders, and that was a word of the week, and you have to use it 5 times.
And I will say,
their final.
Yeah, and Robert Carradine, when he's playing like the posh, fancy ponytail version of Lou, where he's trying not to laugh because has the nerd laugh. It feels wrong, but then as soon as he nerds up, it just feels right again. And his acting is better once he nerds up again. It's funny.
Well, maybe his acting is so good that you can tell that like this is not who he really is.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, he could like the bad acting could be intentional.
Yeah. So this one, I mean, it's got like just really bad pranks where like, you know, the alphas shave like nerds into the back of their heads, but then the scene later, all of the hair is grown back, and it's like, you know, it's just really poorly done. But I will say Nerds in Love is pretty great.
So 3 is like the weak link in the
3 is the weak link, and I'm glad that they gave them a 4th one, which, just so you know, as I'm going to read a synopsis I did not write. I just copied and pasted it from Wikipedia because I'm like, I'm not going to put in the effort anymore for this one. But it should be noted that the 4th one, it's made for TV, and it was broadcast on a Monday night Foxorama promotion that had a gimmick where it was shown in 3D and with aroma vision. So people got scratch and sniff cards at 7-Eleven that there would be a little thing that comes up on the bottom of the screen where people have to sniff the card. So I didn't get the, 5D experience of this, but it was entertaining nonetheless. So also,
God, how can we even talk about it if you haven't had the 5 weeks? I haven't even seen it. So I'm looking at the cast list though. And
Dan, I'm so mad at you right now. So here's the synopsis. So Dudley, this is from Wikipedia. Dudley Booger Dawson is marrying his Omega Mu girlfriend Jeannie, but the father of the bride tries to stop them, as his desire to maintain his conservative nouveau riche standing clashes with his daughter's common interests and love for the nerdy Booger. Jeannie's father works with his loathsome son-in-law Chip, the husband of Jeannie's older sister Gaylord, to find a way to discredit Booger and cause Jeannie to call off the wedding. Louis Skolnick and the other nerds discover the conspiracy and work to save Booger's wedding ceremony from being torpedoed. In a subplot, Louis's wife Betty is pregnant with their first child and is in her 3rd trimester as the wedding date approaches. Booger fights an accusation that he fathered an illegitimate child whose name is Heidi and introduced as Heidi Dawson. Her first name really is Heidi, yet her real last name is not revealed. Okay, by Chip. Jeannie's mom tells her husband that she will leave him if he does not support his daughter's wedding to Booger, and Chip's accusations fall apart when the little girl reveals that she was drafted from an orphanage to play the illegitimate child role. Chip's wife decides to divorce him and throws him out of their lives forever, leaving Chip to swear his own revenge against the nerds, while Gaylord declares to Cheers that her next husband will be a nerd. Booger and Jeannie are married, Betty gives birth to a healthy baby boy, and the newly married couple tell Heidi that they would like to adopt her. So Jeannie is played by the incredible Karin Bor, who is like, I don't know, if there was an ideal guest for this podcast, it would be Karin Bor, no question.
Yeah.
Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, vice versa. Yeah, she's great.
Nerds 4.
Yeah.
Veronica Mars.
So her father is played by Joseph Bologna, who's awesome, and Dan, I mentioned this to you, that this cast is kind of like the family reunion from Ruined Childhoods, because
it really is.
He was Transylvania 65000. We have Christina Pickles, who was in Masters of the Universe, as his wife.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm like Evelyn.
Evelyn, but in this movie, different situation. The private eye, Chad Penrod, is played by Robert Picardo of The Explorers and Inner Space. And
Gremlins too. All Joe Dante, pretty much. Yeah.
And so he's great. And so we have Lamar is back. Takashi is back. Stan is there as a nerd. And he has the chicken pox, so he's just like laid up, but he must have only had like a couple days to film. So they're just like, let's just give him chicken pox.
Maybe he didn't want to do this, but he was contractually bound for it, so they just did the Anthony Edwards thing.
Is that the story?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I can look.
I will say he puts his everything into it, the way that Anthony Edwards did not in Nerds in Paradise. Then we got James Cromwell back.
Paul Gleason is in this. Paul Gleason, the principal from Breakfast Club?
Is he? I don't remember him.
He's in the cast list. Yeah. I don't know.
there's an early appearance by I forget his name, something McDonald, who was on Mad TV just a few years after this. Michael McDonald
of the Doobie Brothers?
Not of the Doobie Brothers. Anyway, I do want to point out something that, Dan, I don't know if you know this about me, but one of my favorite websites on the internet is called allbreedpedigree.com. Do you know what that website is?
No,
I
don't.
It is a registry of horse names, and it shows their lineage. There is a scene where Robert Picardo's character is with Chip, and they're talking about Booger or whatever. And at the end of the scene, he's like got his newspaper open. And he's like, "Oh, there's a horse race going on. There's a horse named Big Booger." So he like marks it down on his racing form. I looked up on allbreedpedigree.com. There was a horse born in 1953 named Big Booger. Son of Nurse and Joe Moore. And we're going back all the way into the 1800s in his upbringing. He has a, let's see, grandfather, great grandfather named War Eagle, a great grandfather named Diamond Deck. There's some good ones in there. Great grandmother named Grasshopper. That's nice. But yeah, Big Booger is a real horse that has existed.
Wow. No, John, when you said, I don't know if you know this about me, I immediately actually thought of the other question that I had about your personal background and history with Revenge of the Nerds. Because I remember you going by the nickname Ogre.
Oh, yeah.
For some time.
Just my freshman year of college, there was a group of people who called me Ogre. I forgot about that.
I did not know how that. I was like, I remember John used to was called Ogre, but I couldn't think of how, because
I forget how it started. Yeah. There was, I think it was like the people on my floor in my like freshman year dorm. We were having like a bonding evening like in the first week or whatever, and it kind of came up that way, but it was like only that group of people that I like never talked to after that. I don't know.
Okay. Mystery solved.
Yes. So that is Nerds in Love. While I was watching it, I was like, I know that I've seen this before, because the way that Curtis Armstrong says nouveau riche pigs is like burned into my brain.
Hath not a nerd eyes? When you prick us, do we not bleed? I am tired of the reckless allegations, the snide snickering, the talking behind backs, the sly innuendos, the looking down on us. We are what we are, aren't we? We are! And we're proud of what we are. We are! And we are not about to allow ourselves to be intimidated by a bunch of Booger! Don't say it! Say it, Booger! Nouveau riche pigs! There you go!
And then there's a chant at the end where they all start chanting nouveau riche, and that is burned in my brain.
Was that the word of the week that week?
Yeah, right. It's really funny because to Joseph
Sorry,
Bologna's...
I'm imagining the two kids writing their Nerds 3 script for their like semester 1 final, and then what do we do for semester 2? Nerds 4.
Yeah, right.
What's the word of the week? Nouveau riche. Get that shit in there.
So Joseph Bologna, to him, the term nouveau riche is like the worst slur you can think of, because that's what he is. He's new money. And to him, being called that is just like poison. And at the end, he embraces it.
I would like to make an announcement. I have been a jerk for this whole wedding.
You certainly have.
Well, I'd never been around a nerd before, and I guess, I judged a book by its cover. Booger, I know you and my Jeannie are going to be very happy together because you know what you are, and you're proud of it. Well, I'm, sick of trying to be something I'm not. Tippy? I am nouveau riche, and I'm proud of it. Mylan, if who I am isn't good enough for the Republican Party of this state, then to hell with the nomination. And that is the truth.
The nerds have brought my man back.
It's really funny. I feel like Nerds in Love is very self-aware, and it knows that it's totally whack, and I don't know, it plays on that. It definitely does. And you see a lot of integrity in some of the characters, especially Booger. Chip is trying to get him to sleep with a stripper that he is secretly filming, and when he tries to expose it, he just sees him saying, like, I can't do this because I love Jeannie, and, you know, she's watching it. And then it goes to Chip getting, like, spanked by another one of the strippers or something. So it's...
I'm wondering what it is about Karin Bor, because I'm thinking about her as the love interest for Zed in Police Academy 4, who's not the same as Booger. Like they're very different characters, but yet also they're like the closest links between the two.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that she plays her roles with such sincerity that like you believe that this person would be with that person. I don't know.
That makes sense. No, that makes
she's just such a good
saying, like, what is it? No, but it's that. Yeah, no. She is. She's very believable.
She's wonderful. And in Nerds in Love, like, she really lays it on thick, but also it's kind of like, you know, knowing that she was in Omega Mu and that there's this rich history.
Oh, she was.
Mm-hmm. There's this rich history of the Mus and the Trilams.
Ah, the hell with my dad!
No, that's exactly what I hoped you'd say.
Again.
Oh, I can't tell you what it does to me to hear you moo again. Moo!
Oh, Booger!
Jeannie!
In Police Academy 4, not to always be talking about Police Academy, but like was she a librarian?
She was a journalist. She was a reporter.
She wasn't a journalist. That was Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone. That was Sharon.
Yeah.
I get Karin Bor and Sharon Stone confused.
I understand.
All the time.
I understand. Fantastic actors. No, was she a librarian? She was some sort of...
Oh, no. Well, she was at the community center because she was running the poetry reading.
Yeah. I knew it was something like that. So it's like, you know that like...
Mustn't have been too important to her. She drops it all to be a citizen on patrol.
Well, I mean, once she saw Zed, she was like, va-va-voom.
Well, that poem he reads at the reading, you know, art blew a fart.
Yeah.
Hell
so, the whole thing is really funky, and like James Cromwell like performs the wedding ceremony and then like holds up the like nerd baby who of course has like no umbilical cord and just comes out clean as a whistle.
Does he do like a Lion King?
Pretty much.
Like hold up and all the other nerds are down on the bottom.
I think that they all like put their hands up like around the baby. It's really funny.
Simba Skolnick.
Yeah. It's there's something about it though that just like, I don't know, it's fun to watch. Whereas the third one was not fun to watch.
Now, do the third and the fourth ones have the musical numbers like the first and the second?
No. Okay, no, they did not. Did the third one? The third one might have. Yes, the third one did, and it was bad.
Trilam doesn't discriminate, nor do we instigate a means to segregate. It is our job to facilitate a means to educate. We believe that diversity is the cement, the crazy glue, if you will, that bonds us together. Yo, Bullethead! Boss it!
Try that.
Here we go.
Lambda, it's our fraternity. We are her loyal subjects because she is our queen. We have no group excluded. We don't discriminate. We just ask that you keep your GPA at 3.8. Everybody go bust it.
This is too high for me. Too high.
The fourth one did not.
I gotta say, having like heard it both recently, what's the better one?
No
Is
on
it
15.
No on 15?
It's No on
15. No on 15 has really stuck with me.
Yeah. No on 15 is great. The clap your hands, everybody. Everybody, clap your hands. It's lambda, and Omega Moo. That's great. It's a classic. Do. Like, it's great.
Curtis Armstrong with and Poindexter with, I mean, their production value and everything was outstanding. But No on 15,
No on 15 is great.
That's the hit.
It's the Beastie Boys-esque song. The third one, it's Chi McBride, and like, yeah, I don't know, it's fine.
Let's also not forget that the original Revenge of the Nerds has an amazing soundtrack.
Thriller.
So Thriller was on there.
It's got Talking Heads, Burning Down the House.
Talking Heads. Queen, We Are the Champions.
Queen, We Are the Champions in a major part of the movie.
Yeah.
Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is in there to a different extent. Although I do love. Okay, so in the party scene, Lewis is like, UN's not having a good time. Maybe I'll put on something that is more his style. And he puts on Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, which is crazy that he has that record in the first place. The way that Lamar looks at UN when he changes the record is delightful.
It's perfect. I love that they don't say anything.
No, it's just it's just like he doesn't get it. He doesn't know.
There's some great moments in there, though. I have to say, why did it seem to take hours for Booger to remember that he had like 5 joints, giant joints in his shirt pocket, and that those might help liven up the party?
Well, also what livens up the party is the song "Are You Ready for This, Sex Girls" by Gleaming Spires. That one is pretty crazy too.
Yes.
And then Nerds in Paradise, all the music, well, Mark Mothersbaugh does the music, and it's all performed by Devo. So
did he do the music for the first one?
No. But they have a Devo poster, and they have like Devo-esque music.
The music sounds like Devo, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the opening, the song Revenge of the Nerds is very Devo-esque, but it's not Devo.
Correct. But let's see. That's funny. The Wikipedia page for Nerds in Paradise doesn't mention Devo, which is surprising. Because
what are they afraid of?
Yeah, right. But no, music by Mark Mothersbaugh, but in the credits it says that it's performed by Devo, which is awesome. And it's got that one's got a pretty solid soundtrack too, but not in the same way. Like they must have had an amazing budget for that first one to be able to afford Thriller. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, how do you get Thriller?
Yeah. The made for TV ones there was like no music in them at all. They feel very made for TV. It's pretty, I don't know. They feel very hollow. And, but I gotta say, like, for some reason, the fourth one, they've got such amazing people in it. And I don't know if I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like Robert Picardo is on a higher level because I just love the particular movies that he's in. And maybe although let's see, what year would this have been? I mean, this was clearly after he's done like so many awesome roles. This is what, 94 or something?
94? Same year as The Lion King, in fact.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah. So I was looking at just kind of like what, because we know that there's been the TV movies.
Right.
So what next? And I know one of the screenwriters was talking about how he was adapting it into a musical.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some rumors going about last year about Disney, who owns Fox now,
right,
putting together a sequel with the original cast. I don't know if that's something that's still in the works, if that was something that was just kind of bandied about because when Disney took over Fox, it was like, okay, well, what franchises are they just going to milk the hell out of?
Or like a Disney Plus series.
Yeah,
well, there was a remake in the works in 2007 that just like got kiboshed even after like they started filming. And I think that let's see. I think this is from IMDb trivia. 20th Century Fox greenlit a remake under the then existing Fox Atomic label. And it was filming in 2006 with Adam Brody, who also co-produced, Efren Ramirez, Kyle Newman directing. The film was originally going to be shot on the Emory College campus until college officials objected to the film's raunchy content. Production company experienced difficulties shooting on the smaller Agnes Scott campus. Scrapped early on in production after studio had disliked the dailies. Plans to remake the film have indefinitely been shelved. And then there was an unaired pilot for a television series directed by Peter Baldwin in 1991. And it wasn't picked up for a series. Mid-2000s, Armstrong and Carradine pitched around a reality TV show. And it eventually happened in 2012 with King of the Nerds from 2013 to 2015 on, was it like TNT or something? TBS.
It's TBS, yeah.
And Curtis Armstrong and Robert Carradine hosted that one.
So what would you do that hasn't been done with this already?
Well, at the beginning of the episode, you had mentioned something about Adams College and the Atoms, ATOMS, being their team name. And I had been thinking about, and I feel like I've been on a prequel mindset a lot lately, but I think that a prequel like Dawn of the Revenge of the Nerds would be good.
Dawn of the Nerds, Rise of the Nerds.
Well, I like the idea of two of these. So Dawn of the Revenge of the Nerds. Like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So
got it.
So I was, I think a lot of people know that the first instance of the word nerd was in 1950 in the Dr. Seuss book, If I Ran the Zoo, in which he uses the nerd to describe just a, type of animal in his fictional zoo. And the slang term, this is according to Wikipedia, dates back to 1951. Newsweek reported on its popular use as a synonym for drip or square in Detroit. And then by the early 60s, usage of the term had spread throughout the United States, even as far as Scotland. At some point, the word took on connotations of bookishness and social ineptitude. There's also alternative spellings, NURD and GNURD, and Philip K. Dick claims that he coined NURD spelling in 1973, but it was in 65 in a student publication. There's also a different version of it that's KNURD, which is DRUNK spelled backwards. So it's used to describe people who studied rather than partied. And so there's a lot of lore of the word nerd. And there's even one word of a 1940s term called nert, N-E-R-T, meaning stupid or crazy person, which is in itself an alteration of nut. And the term was popularized in the 70s by its heavy use in the sitcom Happy Days. So I think that let's say 1960s Adams College, this is like 20 years before the Nerds there, where like it is primarily a nerd school. And this is a time when school was school. It wasn't a place to go and party. And I think that it's kind of a reverse type of situation where the some nerds who are a little different than the others kind of break off and open up a chapter of the alpha betas. And I'm not saying that it should glorify the jocks or the nerd bashers, but I think that that's where we should start to see the division between alpha betas and nerds. It's
interesting because go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, to see it in a period piece, to see it in a more historical context of, like
during the civil rights movement.
Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I think that there's definitely a way to get that element in there. Adam, there you go.
Yeah. So what's interesting is actually that was another proposal that I had read was a reversal, but not a prequel, which I think is a much more interesting idea, but kind of a like, well, now all the nerds, all the, Mark Zuckerbergs and Bill Gates of the world, and like, they're cool. And well, not Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, right. But also just like the concept of being a nerd or like a geek about something or a dork about something, like that is normal. That is accepted. Like you have people who are, major celebrities who are like influencers, but they're really into like weird shows, the cartoon shows like Rick and Morty or something. And, it's like the lines have been blurred so much.
Right. Yeah. So I was thinking about it and I was like, well, where does this story make sense? I like your origin story idea.
Yeah. Just real quick though, I also had a kind of another one that's more of like the structure of like The Princess Bride, where you do have Robert Carradine, but he's like an old man and he's like telling a story to like his grandson, and it's like about, I don't know, like a 15th century swashbuckling nerd, like something like that, where it takes place even further back in time. And it's, a similar story of nerd persecution. The word nerd wouldn't be necessarily part of it unless they just don't care about the history of the word. But
so then would it just be like the Inquisition, like the Spanish Inquisitions?
Too much, Dan. You just gotta let this be its own thing.
I can't because watching this movie, I just kept finding the parallels and the hints that like this, it's like one of the, 4 writers on this movie really wanted to put in some depth and put in a message. And I guess I can't, to me, that's where the value is in this movie today, is that it is still about tolerance and oppression and really fascism. Because the coach, very fascist, like, all right, well, our house burned down. You're going to go live in the freshman dorms. Just kick them out. You need a place to live. They have a place to live. You're better than they are. So go kick them out.
Yeah.
It's, the alpha betas would be carrying tiki torches in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
That's so I kind of can't help seeing, and it's like the Bad News Bears. It's this collection of misfits, heavyweights, same idea. Even explorers to a lesser extent, like they're the nerdy kids.
Yeah.
So it's. I was thinking, I was like, well, where would this make sense nowadays? And I thought, well, you could set it in a middle school, and then you don't have the fraternities, but you've got like the clubs, which are kind of like the fraternities of a middle school. And, like the computer club and robotics club versus like, the sports.
Sure.
So you could have this sense of a middle school. And I think also because that's where kids kind of start to get disillusioned. And at the beginning of Revenge of the Nerds, Lewis is looking at everything really innocently and even though he's talking about, how many boobs there are on campus, he's still looking at it with these rose tinted glasses. And I think that that a lot of kids go into middle school, like it's like that old commercial for the for orange juice, and when they're on the lunch line and the kid's like, I'll have an apple juice please, and the other kid's like, we're junior high, you drink orange juice now. I could just see it as this Lewis and Gilbert going into middle school, and not actual Lewis and Gilbert. Like I would make this even more of a, like, less of a remake, more of a not a reboot, I guess a remake, but a remake that is set in a middle school, because that's really, like, to me, the prank, everything that the Alpha Betas were doing was so middle school.
Right. Yeah.
So why not set it in a middle school?
Yeah.
Where at least you can get a little bit more like I feel like most people have, like middle school was traumatic. So why not? And then, I mean, I guess you run into and if Disney's making it, that's an excellent route for Disney to go.
Yeah, sure.
But then again, it's like, has it already been done?
Well, what you could also do is have, like, set it up, and I'm not specifically talking about your 8th grade situation, but also do a version of it where it's more of an allegory on colonization, where you have the nerds who are then infiltrated and attempt to, I guess that's what I was talking about with my prequel concept, where it's a school of nerds, and then, the jocks come in and take over the whole place. Anyway, I'm just trying to think of other ways to make it mean something more than just a panty raid.
And they try to make the nerds assimilate to their jock ways.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to just circle back real quick to the Nerds in Paradise soundtrack. So one of the first things that you hear is actually a Devo rendition of Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. I don't know if you remember that, because I know you didn't rewatch it, but I don't know if that, it's while, like, they're packing. You also have the 38 special song Back to Paradise, which goes over the opening credits. Take you back to paradise. Anyway.
Okay. I had another song in my head. It was David Lee Roth, Paradise.
Oh, no. And then I also saw that, guess who wrote the No on 15 song?
Guess who wrote, it's not Mark Mothersbaugh?
No.
Who wrote the No on, let me see. Let me think Richard Marx.
No. Larry B. Scott wrote it.
Oh,
yeah. Which
okay.
makes me like it and
question.
him even more.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad that, he had the agency to, like, I don't know, put a bigger imprint on the movie than just playing the character, like actually writing the No on 15 song, which, like, for anybody who grew up with this movie, that song.
No, on 15.
I mean, I don't know any of the words.
I just remember the chant.
That, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that there's definitely room for something with this, but I think that in order for it to really happen, you need to either completely stray away from the original cast, or you need to use them strategically and not let them just run amok. Because I think that one of the problems with, like, the third movie is that they were just like, well, the first two worked because the second one was a box office success. I mean, it was critically panned, but, like, it did really well. And I mean, for what it was, I think it did surprisingly well. But I don't know. I think that it was just like they were kind of hot shit and just felt like we could do whatever and people are going to like it. And that just wasn't the case. It was terrible. It was really bad.
No.
Dan, it was really bad.
I mean, I honestly, like, I don't see the need really to do anything with this. It's not necessarily a story or a plot that needs to be retold, and they're not characters that I think need to be revisited. Granted, Curtis Armstrong as Booger, I would be very tempted to see that again, but
well, what if also just, like, you can look at other Curtis Armstrong roles. Let's say, because he plays, like, the school principal on New Girl. Let's just pretend like that's actually Booger, but, going by a different name. And then just watch that show and just imagine that it's Booger trying to pretend to be a respectable person. I don't know.
I have a lot of respect for Booger.
So you mentioned that Robert Carradine, I'm trying to think of other things that he's been in at like this level. And I can't really think of anything where he's been, I don't know, such a big character.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else really. I can't think of anything else that I've really seen him in, and I know he's done other work.
Yeah, he's done a ton of work. He was in Django Unchained as Tracker Number 3. Same year as he was in Bikini Spring Break as Gil. I don't know. What a career.
Oh boy.
What a career.
I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, John, anything else you want to throw out there about Revenge of the Nerds?
The only thing I want to say is let's pour one out for Big Booger, who certainly is no longer with us. Born in 1953, a quarter horse. Yeah, I mean, Big Booger, I hope you're up there licking a nice chunk of salt in heaven, in horsey heaven.
All right, let's pour one out.
Let's talk about what we're doing in the next episode.
Yeah, so next episode.
I'm just thinking of, so in Revenge of the Nerds, they certainly know how to party, don't they?
Oh yeah, but not like Peter Sellers in Blake Edwards' satire, The Party.
Yes, and we are going to talk about parties and exploiting racial stereotypes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you haven't, this is one that maybe most people aren't familiar with or haven't seen unless you are a big fan of Peter Sellers or Blake Edwards. So highly encourage you to check it out.
I saw it streaming on Amazon Prime. My only disclaimer is that while you are watching it, read up on it a little bit, because it'll be really easy to jump to certain judgments.
No, and I think in order to understand, also have a better sense of the context of the film, like getting a sense of who Blake Edwards was as an artist.
Yeah, and Peter Sellers as well.
Peter Sellers. Yeah. But that should be a very interesting conversation. And we hope you join us at the party, for the party.
With the party.
And at the party. With the party.
Good journey.
Good journey.
People in the place. Here's a story about some guys that are bound for glory. I'll get right down to the nitty-gritty. The Triple L crew is gonna rock this city.